Welcome to the latest episode of Branding the Experience, where we discuss ways where we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. Hi, I'm Ken Bader, your host for Branding the Experience, also the founder of Bader Training and Consulting, and the author of the book, The Formula for Business Success equals B plus C plus S, a discussion on brand, culture, strategy, alignment. Well, since this is Branding the Experience, we're going to talk about branding the experience today with our subject of how long does ticked off last? And what I'm going to share a couple stories with you is going to show that ticked off can last a pretty darn long time. In fact, let's go to a particular story that I talked about at one of my favorite venues, the Gas Lamp in Long Beach, when I was holding a workshop titled Branding the Experience. Let's listen in.
But one of the first things we need to understand is that marketing and branding aren't the same thing. In fact, there was a business that was a prospective client here in Long Beach. It was a couple of years ago. And we sat in a meeting and they said, well, what's the difference between branding and marketing? Isn't that the same thing? And I explained it to them as I'll explain to you in just a minute. And they said, well, we just do grassroots efforts here. I don't even know quite what that means, but I actually came here afterwards and saw my friend Mike Neufeld, who owns this great establishment. And I said, what does grassroots marketing mean? And he goes, it means they're not doing anything. By the way, Mike wanted to make sure for me to mention that he is in the book as a positive example. And it's a great case study here of how Mike's brought this place from when he owned it to something really, really special. I remember being in here not too long after you bought it, Mike, and you chose not to change the name, which I know you struggled with a little bit because that was a brand that had been here for a while. In fact, I remember even suggesting to some friends after I got to know Mike, and more importantly, got to know the great service and the great food and the great experience that I had here, and I had people say, well, I don't know if I want to go to the Gas Lamp. I said, really, why? Well, I had a bad experience. I said, well, when did that happen? Because if it was like a day or two ago, I can get Mike on text and he'll take care of it right away. So, oh, that was probably about, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago. Yeah, that's another thing that we need to understand about branding is that people have long memories, right? People actually carry around that one bad experience for sometimes years and years and years. And so fortunately I convinced the friend, said, no, actually it's a brand new owner. If you haven't been there for 5 or 6 years, you deserve to experience this. And we came over here and said, this is much different. This is much better. So again, it's the customer's perception.
So in the case of the Gas Lamp, in the example that I gave of my friend that didn't want to go there for dinner and the show, that he had a bad experience 5-6 years earlier with a completely different owner. It might have even been a completely different name because they did have a name from a previous owner, 2 previous owners before the current one. So ticked off lasted a long, long time for this gentleman, and it took me almost dragging him in there to experience what the experience was today, which is much, much better. Easily a 5-star out of 5-star. But to give you another example, from a personal example, from my wife, about 5-6 years ago. Again, everything happens about 5-6 years ago, apparently. But about 5-6 years ago, we were in the market for a new car. And my wife has always had an affinity for BMWs. So, she decided, it would be good to get maybe a used 3 Series or something like that. And I said, all right, well, let's just go right down the street to this particular BMW dealership. You know, it was close to the house. I thought it made sense. She goes, no, I don't want to go there. I'm like, all right. And she says, let's go to the other BMW dealership, the one that is by the office, which is part of a large auto mall. And her reasoning at the time was because there's going to be more cars there. It's a big place. If we want to look at other makes of automobiles other than BMWs, they've got other places there, so it'll be a one-stop shop. We'll only have to go to one place. So I said, all right, well, let's get in the car, let's drive the 15-18 miles, whatever the heck it was or is, and we ended up buying a BMW, which we're pretty happy with that particular brand. But later on, she explained, and I think this might have been a year later, she explained that she actually went to the dealership I suggested right by our house a number of years before. In fact, I think it might have even been 7 or 8 years before I even knew or met my wife, and said that she had a really, really bad experience, that the salesperson was condescending, and that she actually was going to buy a vehicle, but he created such a negative experience that she didn't even buy it. And ironically, she actually ran into this individual either at a restaurant or at the store or so forth, and he made a smart-ass comment to her about not buying that vehicle. And so she vowed that she would never go to that particular dealership ever again. Now, you know, fast forward, that person, you know, might not even be there. In fact, you know, I would say that there's a high probability, especially given the turnover of salesmen in any industry, that he's either doing sales in some other organization, maybe another car dealership, or doing a completely different job. So he's probably not even there. But ticked off lasted so long for her that she refused years and years later, even today, refuses to go to that dealership to look at a vehicle. And fortunately for the BMW brand, that experience didn't transfer over into the actual make and model of the car. She still has a high appreciation for the product that BMW as a corporation makes, but that particular dealership is where the brand association of this is a bad experience and I'm never going back. That's where the link is. So, you know, how long does ticked off last? Pretty darn long for some people, and I know from personal experience there are places that I've gone to once, had a bad experience, and not only will I never go back, I go out of my way to tell my friends and family, you know, that's a place you really shouldn't go to. Yeah, and that's why, you know, going back to the gas lamp, yeah, Mike Neufeld, who's the owner of that great place, highly recommend it. You know, when he first took it over, it had a big sign that said under new management or under new ownership, and I see a lot of places do that to make it clear from a brand association standpoint. Hey, if you didn't like it before, if you didn't like that guy or gal that ran it last year, well, he or she's gone, so try me again, or try us again, because we're under a whole different program. So how long does ticked off last? A really long time, which is why you really need to concentrate on branding the experience for both your employees and your customers, so that you're not losing business that you didn't even know that you could have had. Thanks for spending some time with me today, and here's hoping that you brand the experience at your business at a very high level. Take care.